We're going to start by first reviewing place value. So if you take a look, we have place value blocks here. This is worth 1, this is worth 10, this is worth 100, and this is worth 1,000. So if I just look at my 1 and my 10s for a second, I know this is worth 10 because if I take my 1s, I can line up 10 1s and it will be the exact same value. So 10 1s is the same thing as 1 10. I can do the same thing with my 10s and my 100s. To move from my 10s place to my 100s place, I need 10 10s. If I stack them right on top, you can see that the 10 10s is the same thing as 100. So 10 1s gave me 110, and then 10 10s gives me 100. The same thing happens moving from my hundreds place value to my thousands. I need 10 hundreds to give me the same value as 1,000. A little easier to see like this. 10 hundreds fit into 1,000. So every time I switch place values, I'm moving by groups of 10. It's important to think about how every place value gets 10 times bigger when we're working with an addition or subtraction problem. So if this is my addition problem and I'm starting with this value right here, I know that I have 340, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 346, and I'm adding on to that 200, 6 10s, and 7 1s. So I'm lining up my numbers by place value. 1s go with 1s, 10s and 10s, hundreds and hundreds. So when I add, I always start with my smallest value, which here is going to be my 1s place. So I'm going to start with doing the 6 plus the 7. When I combine those together, if I was to add up all of these, I'm going to get 13 1s. Now I'm not going to write down a 13 because there's another place value in here. Just like we said before, if I were to line these up, all of those together are worth the same thing as a 10. So instead of writing down 13, I'm going to leave the fact that I have 3 1s in my 1s place. And instead of writing that 10 down next to it, I'm going to take this 10 and I'm going to put this 10 now into my 10s place. So when I'm doing the addition algorithm, that looks like this. That 10 goes up above my 10s place. So 110. Now I'm going to add my 10s. So I had 4 10s before. I'm adding 6 10s, which is 10 10s plus 1 more gives me 11. Same thing, 11 10s. I'm not going to write down 11 right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to think about what is that worth. 11 10s, I know, just like we did before, that I can take 10 of those and that equals the same thing as 100. So what I'm going to do is write down the fact that I have that 110 left here, and instead of writing down the 11, that other 10 10s equals 100, and that 100 is going to go into my hundreds place. So I put the 1 above that 3. Now in my hundreds place, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hundreds, which is 3 plus 2 plus 1. So some people call this carrying numbers over. What you're really doing is you're regrouping when you have more than 9 in any place value. So looking at this problem, I know that this top number here, or for you bottom number, is 337. So then my bottom number, I'm going to line up my place values like you see here with the blocks, and it's 398. So my place values are lined up perfectly and organized. So I'm always going to start with my smallest value, which is my 1s over here. When I add up that 7 plus the 8, I'm going to get an answer of 15, which means that I'm going to need to do some regrouping. So instead of writing down the 15, I know that I can trade some of these 1s in for a 10. So I'll take 10 of my 1s and turn them into a 10. So now that 10 is going to go over to my 10s place. So that means that my 5 is written down in my 1s place, and that 110 went over to my 10s place now to be added on in the 10s value. Now I can move on to my 10s place. I had the 9 before, plus the 3, 10, 11, 12, plus one more is 13, but I'm not going to write down that 13 because I know that 10 tens is the same thing as 100. So I'm going to write down the fact that there's 3 tens, but then those 10 tens become 100 and are moved to my hundreds place value. Now I can add up my hundreds place value. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus that one more is 7. Now this will work for any size number because no matter how many place values I move over, it's always in groups of 10. So if I have the number 43,862 and I want to add on 15,943, I can use the same steps as long as I remember that once I get to 10, I need to regroup to the next place value. So again, I always start with my ones place. 2 plus 3 is 5. Then I go to my tens place. 6 plus 4 is 10, but that's really the same thing as having 100. So I write down the 0 and bring up the 1. Now I can add my hundreds place value, 900, 800, and 100. And that gives me 18, but really now I'm moving to my thousands place. So I write down the 8 and bring up the 1. And the pattern's going to keep continuing no matter how far I go. So I get my answer of 58,805. This will work every time as long as you're very careful about lining up your place values. So it's usually easier to put your larger number, which has the more digits, on top. Digits are how many numbers are in there. And then line up your number underneath. Now that's 879, so I need to line it up by putting my 8 in the hundreds place and then my other numbers. If I line this number up incorrectly, my answer will not turn out correctly and the algorithm will not work. Now that it's lined up, I can keep going through the same steps. 9 plus 4 is 13. 3, bring up the 1. 9 plus 7 is 16. Plus 1 is 17. So put down the 7, regroup to the hundreds place with that 1. 8 plus 3 plus 4 is 12. Put down the 2, bring up the 1. 1 plus 6 is 7. And since there's nothing underneath the 4, I just stays a 4. Get my answer of 47,273.